My reading goal this year is to read 24 books and I am almost halfway. January and February were a bit slow, but March was really good in terms of reading. So hey guys, welcome to my channel. It's Icy and let me show you a flip through of the books that I've read so far this year. So in January and February, I finished a total of 4 books, while in March, I finished a total of 6 books. Like wow. First up, we've got Galetea by Madeline Miller. Because I loved Circe and the Song of Achilles, I decided to pick this up. It's a very short story of 52 pages. So it's about a Greek sculptor who was brought to life. I actually gave this book a 3-star rating because I was kind of confused with the time period when this was set. So initially I found the writing style was less poetic than Circe and the Song of Achilles, but towards the end it started getting a bit metaphorical, and that's when I felt like Madeline Miller's writing style started coming out, and I really appreciated the ending and I loved the ending. So looking back on this book, I wish there was more about, the character and her husband and how she came to be, but anyway, a good quick read. So about this spread, every time I read Greek mythology, I think of light academia and sculptures and the color gold. This reminded me so much of my Greek mythology era, which you can find in my Greek mythology reading spreads from last year. So the sculpture and column illustrations that I've included in this spread are actually inspired by images I found on Pinterest. And to incorporate the light academia aspect, I've also stuck some vintage stationery sheets on either corners of the pages. And for every book that I read, I keep a record of my favorite quotes. And my favorite from this book says, "I was the most beautiful woman in town. It was nothing to boast of, and it is nothing I did myself." I usually use 2 pages for a book spread, but because my review took up only 1 page, I decided to write the whole quote on the next page in faux calligraphy. So after that nice, quick and easy 52-page read, I read Gleanings by Neil Shusterman. Not gonna lie, I went into this book with high expectations because I absolutely loved the Ark of a Scythe trilogy. It wasn't actually that bad, but anyway, this book is a compilation of 13 stories. Some were mind-blowing, some were okay, some were But I guess if you like the trilogy, I would recommend reading this because it includes backstories like mini prequels and sequels. So whenever I do book review spreads, I usually select colors that are close to the colors of the cover of the book. And I usually use stationery stickers, illustrations, or printouts that remind me of the vibe of the book. So on both the pages, I've drawn 2 scythes. If you haven't heard of or read this series before, so scythes are basically the Grim Reapers of a society where death is non-existent. I find Neil Shusterman's writing style to be very captivating and very convincing that it felt like I was living in the book and everything in it was real. So if you've read this series, please let me know in the comments what you think. But if you haven't, I highly recommend you check out the Ark of a Scythe series. So in my book review spreads, I usually include the dates that I've read the book, my rating, and my thoughts, and also I try to incorporate the quotes that I like while writing the review instead of like having a separate section for the quotes, because I feel like the quotes are explained better as I write my book review and it makes more sense in that context, if that makes sense. And because this is a compilation of stories, I've divided my review according to the stories, and some, to be honest, I don't remember. There are times when I really like a book, but looking back, I don't really remember the tiny details or how it ended. Are you the same? Please let me know I'm not alone. So the 3rd book that I finished in March was Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. So I have a lot of thoughts about this book, but anyway, it is a post-apocalyptic / dystopian world where this religious fanatic group is on a mission to invade the whole world. I felt very unsettled reading this book actually, so it explores, religious fanaticism and the LGBTQIA community. There's a lot of violence, a lot of gore, and there were these interesting creatures, or I might as well call them monsters, that were created by the religious fanatics. They were called graces or seraphs. and they were described in very gruesome detail to be, I can't even describe them properly. They're like a combination of mutilated body parts, and I've included some photos of seraphs and scary dark angels that I found on Pinterest. So anyway, I have mixed feelings about this book. It made me question a lot of things, but then again, I kind of kept on losing track. Maybe I was distracted, I don't know. But anyway, if you're up for an unsettling read that will make you question your faith and stuff, maybe give this one a go. So the next book is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I will never forget this book because I was reading this after I gave birth at the hospital. I actually read Caraval a few years ago, but I didn't like it because I felt like the writing was childish. So I was a bit reluctant to read this, but I read it anyway. I found the writing to be very magical and whimsical, and it felt like Alice in Wonderland for some reason. I felt like I couldn't relate to any of the characters because it was just, I don't know, everyone was just making their own problems. I'm so sorry I said that, but that's just my opinion. So anyway, I tried to make this spread as whimsical and magical as possible, so there's a lot of metallic elements and fairy tale stickers. I have a lot of fun making these spreads because I like looking through my sticker books. They're called the Sticker Book of Curiosities, Mystical Ephemera, Loads of Ephemera, and Bibliophilia Ephemera, which I all bought from Washigang, which is an Australian online stationery shop. So with my book review spreads, I usually stick the stationery first before I write stuff down. And for my thoughts in my book review, I write in Filipino and English because sometimes I feel like I explain things better in Filipino and sometimes it's the other way around. What about you? How do you write your book reviews? So the next book I read was Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. So before reading this, I actually had no idea what this book was about. The only thing that I knew was it was dark academia. And you know your girl is in her witchy dark academia era. So aside from the dark vibes, I really liked the writing because it was so enthralling and captivating and it really drew me in. So for this book spread, I used a lot of dark and bookish stickers to match the vibe of the book. And I cannot express how glad I am that this book cover is not red and I can actually use other colors like green and gold. I love the cover of the book, so I'm kind of trying to copy the typography that's on the cover. So with my reading journal, I try to practice my hand lettering and calligraphy. So in this book spread, you'll see me using leftover bits of stationery that I don't have the heart to throw out. So I have a thing for ripping stationery sheets and using them for my bullet journal or reading journal, and then I don't throw out the scraps because they are just too pretty. Please let me know that I'm not the only one who does this. So I'm trying to be resourceful by using these tiny, beautiful scraps in my succeeding reading journal pages. So last but not least, I've read The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I love folklore and mythology, so I was really happy that I was able to borrow this from the library. So it's basically about Russian folklore. I assumed that this was about Vasilisa the Beautiful, which is basically the Russian version of Cinderella, but it wasn't. I really love the folklore aspect of it, but I found myself getting lost, especially with the characters and their names because they seem to have nicknames that are not related to their actual names at all, so I got confused from time to time. And there were some parts of the book I didn't find interesting and lost interest, and it felt like they dragged on until the part at the end where everything was spooky, and I actually felt really creeped out by all these creatures, but I actually liked it. Looking back on this book spread now that I'm editing and doing this voiceover, I wish I should have printed images of Russian folklore creatures. That would have been cool, but I guess the stickers and the stationery that I picked still captured the vibe. So at the time of this recording, it is currently mid-April and I have already finished Divine Rivals and The Kingdom of the Wicked. I am currently reading Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo and The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. So finally, here's a flip through of the books that I've read in March. Let me know what you are currently reading. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. May you smash your reading goals, and I'll see you guys in the next video.